So is the Middle East moving towards a larger conflict? With us now is Vali Nasr, professor of international affairs and Middle East studies at Johns Hopkins University, and he is in Washington, D.C. Professor, what's your assessment of what's going to happen next in this conflict?
I think we're still in a very dangerous moment. Israel feels a lot of pressure to respond to the Iranian retaliation, largely because Israel does not want Iran to have the last word in this exchange. And also since Iran's attack was fairly sizable and came from the Iranian territory, it's a whole new baseline for the shadow war between them. And Israel is keen to sort of reestablish deterrence and essentially push back at what happened yesterday.
We've had a couple of days now, I guess, to assess what happened with those attacks from Iran towards Israel. It feels to me like Iran signaled roughly when the attacks would take place. Damage, we're told, was minor. What did Iran achieve?
So you're correct. Iran not only told the world that the attack was coming from 72 hours before, but it started the attack with drones, which take a much longer time to get to Israel and give ample warning. I think Iran's main goal, at least regardless of whether this would have been larger or smaller, was essentially political. They made a statement that they're going to retaliate if they are hit at the level and with the kind of target that Israel attacked in Damascus, that they're going to hit from Iran itself, which raises the stake for a potential war in the future. And also, this whole process kept the world on the edge for over a week. Arab countries, European countries, Canada, the United States were all basically worried about a larger war, and so were also the Israeli public. This took a toll on the global economy, on Israeli economy. So the Iranians believed that they achieved a certain degree of deterrence with Israel, not by what their missiles did, but basically making a case that if they are attacked, they will bring the world back to the edge. And they're hoping that this will translate in some kind of pressure on Israel not to attack Iranian targets the way it did.
This is a complex question, but let me ask it. You've got two different governments here, Iran and Israel. You have two different populations. And I just wonder, when you look at those governments and whatever pressure the populations can or can't put on their governments, how do you think that's affecting what happens over the next few days or weeks?
So for now, the Iranian public is not coming in the streets or really pushing back against what happened. There is a sense of nationalism, I think, that when Israel hit Iran's consulate, it didn't necessarily go down well, even with people who are opposed to the Islamic Republic at varieties of levels. And there's sort of a begrudging, if I would say, support for Iran defending its turf. In Israel, there is a lot of support for Israel also doing the same, with one exception, that the psychological pressure of missiles coming on Israel, has taken a toll on the Israeli public. So we shall see whether they will be up for this kind of tension they went through last week for one more week again if Israel were to retaliate. So I think the publics do matter in this case. And right now, I think my sense is that the Iranian public is not a pressure point on its government to desist from escalating at this point.
And what about the role of the United States with its powerful military? It has made it clear that it wants de-escalation here. Do you think, what factor do you think the U.S. will play?
I think the United States does not want to go to war in the Middle East. And the way that this whole thing started with Israel attacking the Iranian consulate and not informing Washington, and then Iran threatening retaliation, and all these European countries and US through back channels trying to get Iran to calibrate its response, essentially shows that the United States is very nervous, because if Israel continues to retaliate, Iran continues to retaliate, we would be in an escalatory cycle that would basically end with the United States entering into a war that it does not want. So it does want to deter Iran by threatening that it will support Israel and not let Iran's attacks be effective, get the Europeans, Arabs to put pressure on Iran. But it is also putting now pressure on Israel not to retaliate. So the United States is essentially trying to tamp down this conflict, regardless of the fact that it's supporting of Israel. It has a big stake in this, because this time, if this gets out of control, This is different from the Gaza war. The Gaza war could not get the United States into a hot war. A conflict with Iran will most definitely get the United States into a hot war. And so the stakes for the United States are very high, and it's seeing the next step quite differently from Israel.
Professor Nasr, it is so nice to have your analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you.